Divas. Oh, I am so excited for this week's show. We have here in the Speakeasy former Speaker of the House, Paul Renner. Guess what? He's running for governor. He tells us all about why he's running for governor and how he thinks he'll make a difference. Stick with us. You don't want to miss it. Paul Renner, Florida gubernatorial candidate.
I love what the president's doing. I love what the governor's done and is doing. But if I disagree, if I think the interests of Florida lie elsewhere, I'm not afraid to speak up and say that. And I think that's what people want.
You're listening to Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida. Let's dive in.
Oh my gosh, Divas. I'm so excited to be here in the Speakeasy with Speaker Paul Renner. Hello.
Great to be with you, Dara.
It's really great. And he was one of our very first guests when we started doing the podcast 3 years ago. You know, you will be our 160th episode.
But one of the first, too.
And one of the first. I know. It's great. Thank you so much. You're in town today making the rounds. You were in town for... I should mention that you're also running for governor.
Yeah, I have a little project I'm working on.
Project.
That's it.
Project.
But I was here for Sam Garrison's designation.
That's right.
And I thought he did a fantastic job, and it really kind of spoke to the moment. And he's going to be a great leader along with Jim Boyd.
Do you have any advice for him as a former speaker?
Well, I'm sure I have a lot of advice, and I'll if anybody wants it, I'm always happy to share it. But Sam knows exactly what he needs to do. He'll be a great speaker. He doesn't need my advice, and but I'm happy to share it if he ever needs it.
You showed a lot of finesse with that answer, Speaker. Some things don't change. I want to ask you, your campaign released something this morning about fundraising numbers, and so let's start with that. You took in a haul. It was 3.7 million.
Right. Since we've been in the campaign as of yesterday, I guess when we did the press release. And so a little over 3 million through the end of the quarter. We were only in, just so people that don't know, and you'd have no reason to know, we were in for 27 days.
So, because I didn't set you up right.
Yeah, a quarter obviously is 3 months.
Right.
For those like me who are history majors and a little math challenge, a quarter is 3 months. And the 3 months, we were only in for the last 27 days of that quarter. And so we raised over $3 million of campaign contributions, and then contributions to the political committee is how those kind of get divided up. But since then, we've also had more money that we were raising, just didn't get in the door before the 30th. That puts us at that 375 number.
That's a great number right out of the gate, short number of weeks. The Divas and my press corps fellas would shame me out of the press corps if I didn't ask you. The elephant in the room is that Byron Donalds has been endorsed by President Donald Trump. I know you're a Donald Trump fan. You can't be a leader in Florida, a Republican leader in Florida, without being one nowadays. So how do you get over that? Is there a hurdle for you fundraising, getting endorsements, getting support when you've got Donald Trump is such a rock star and he's thrown his support behind one of your opponents?
Well, there's endorsements and then there's endorsements. That's a big one. And so certainly it's something that has to be contended with, but I don't think that's the end of the story. And so I talk about three different things that every voter, really in any race, but especially for governor, think about. And that is, first of all, that this is not an entry-level position. So you're looking for someone, if you're hiring the CEO of the third largest state in America, 15th or 16th largest economy in the world, has leadership experience, because it is a big, big leadership role. In my case, 20 years in the military, served in 2 wars, was an assistant state attorney, so prosecuted violent criminals, stood up for victims, had leadership there as well, where my peers selected me to supervise misdemeanor attorneys, and then was a lead in the felony trial unit. Leadership throughout my life. And then, of course, as Speaker of the House, 2 super consequential years. And so the second thing people should look at is results. We're all going to say a lot of the same things on the Republican side as the Democrats would say on the Democrat side. The question is, who's actually delivered those results. And I think it's because we had that successful 2 years in part because of my military background, which is I put the mission over ego and pettiness and politics. And it's rampant. It's rampant in the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. We all have to check our ego at the door. And I think with a great partner in Kathleen Passidomo, who did the same thing, who just wanted what was good for Florida. And we differed. She's more moderate. I'm more conservative, like the governor philosophically, but we work very, very well together. And another lesson from the military is criticize in private, praise in public. Very simple to say. It's harder to do sometimes when people frustrate you, but we did that. And we had disagreements. She and I did, governor and I did, she and the governor did, but we figured it out. We got a landing spot, came out united. We got a huge amount of things done in those 260-day sessions. And I don't think anybody would contest that those were very, very consequential years. And then the final thing is somewhat related to the first two is who do you trust? Or if to rephrase it, who do you trust the most in the race? And trust comes a little bit from those first two things. Who's got the steady leadership experience that we can look at? And with the governor, we saw him go through COVID. We've seen him go through hurricanes. You establish and you earn trust in life, right? Wherever that is in a relationship, but with the voters, you earn trust. And you earn it, I believe, by having a strong background, by accomplishing things and solving problems. And then people can look at, what I've done in my life and how I've conducted myself and where I've focused really on not, self-advancement or climbing the political ladder as much as really getting things done. And I'm very proud and want to make sure I give a shout out to every House member and senator who was involved in everything I got accomplished as Speaker. There was somebody sponsoring that bill, somebody working to get that done.
Well, I love when my guests do this, and you did it, I think, 4 times in what you just said, and that is that you hit on 4 of the questions that I was going to ask. Now, I don't know how deep we're going to get into this because one of the things that you also said was criticize in private and praise in public. So I am going to ask you some tough questions,
Sure.
and we'll see how you answer. You worked very closely with the governor it was your agenda and the governor's agenda. You were much more closely aligned, I think, ideologically than with President Passidomo. And yet he kind of dissed you when you came out and announced you were running. Was that a surprise to you?
Well, having just announced one of my principles of good leadership,
I set it up all wrong.
I have said, and will say again on your show, that I am confident that in the end, the governor will get behind us and support us, and I'd welcome his support as well as the president at some point, whenever that is. And so he's done a great job as governor. I think that, however, objectively, I think that if you're looking in terms, and as many Republicans are, is we don't want to go backwards. Who can step in objectively and continue the legacy that the governor's begun? Well, you'd look at someone who has helped build that legacy, and you'd have to put me on that list.
Right.
And also is going to be a good partner for the president in the years to come after this governor's gone and the new governor is in office to help the president with his agenda. And I think there's going to be it has been overlap with both the governor and the president on 95% of things. I will say this, and it's one of our monikers is putting Florida first. And so where there's differences, and you saw this with the governor and the president, you've seen it a couple different times, there is, I love what the president's doing. I love what the governor's done and is doing. But if I disagree, if I think the interests of Florida lie elsewhere, I'm not afraid to speak up and say that. And I think that's what people want. People want a true leader who's got policy depth, who's looked at hard issues, who's worked with people, including across the aisle. I'm very conservative, but I did a lot of things while I was Speaker that were priorities, or you would look at as priorities of people across the aisle because they were good ideas. And we had bipartisan support for those ideas. And so I want to get things done. I want to solve problems. I've proven I can do that. And I think objectively, if you're looking at who to continue the DeSantis era, so we protect and expand what we have and still solve the challenges of tomorrow, you turn to somebody who solved yesterday's challenge.
Do you think that Republican voters in the primary are going to have to choose between a Trump candidate and a DeSantis candidate?
I have no idea. They have one of those, and we'll have to see what the governor winds up doing and how that goes. Look, primaries are always an inter-family discussion, sometimes squabble, sometimes shouting match. But in the end, whoever it is, and I believe it will be me, but I would hope to and plan to unite the party. And so part of that is uniting the party now and talking about the importance of all of those different groups.
Are you doing that while you're going around
Yeah.
and meeting with people?
Yeah, I am.
What's the response that you're getting? What kind of reaction are you getting?
About uniting the party? Yeah, I think people, and listen, Speaker Designate Garrison said it today, and I may reframe it, when we're fighting, the other side's winning. And so it's incumbent on all of us to check our ego at the door. Again, have conversations that need to be had, disagree where there's legitimate disagreements, but come out and never forget, it's not about us. It's not about us. It's about solving problems. And if you run for office saying, I will solve your problems, and you get in there and you worry about your own political problems or agenda or ambition, or how someone slighted you personally and the pettiness that comes with politics, and again, it's bipartisan, you failed. And so you got to deliver for the Floridians that elected you, and I will do that as governor.
What do you think is the biggest problem? I'll give you 3. What are the top 3 problems in order, any order? I'll give you any order.
Okay.
Facing Floridians today.
Yep. Well, if you look at any poll, and if you talk to anybody, as I have, it's affordability, whether that's housing costs, grocery costs, insurance, property tax. There has to be relief, and it's not just one thing.
It's always pocketbook issues.
Yeah. And it's not just one thing. And the reason for that is because we've had this huge rapid growth in Florida, which has driven up housing prices, which in turn has driven up property taxes, which has driven up insurance costs, because now your house costs more. It costs more to insure. And all these different things that have happened at once. And so Floridians are struggling. We have to do that. We have seniors, and this breaks my heart that we have seniors who are losing their homes they've lived in for 20 or 30 years because they can't keep up with those things that have increased so dramatically more than their fixed income allows them to pay. And so that's the moment we're in. We have to, that's number one, first on my list. Separately.
How do you do that?
Well, it's a combination of things. We did it. And again, if you want to solve tomorrow's problems, look at somebody who's begun to solve the problem already. Insurance, when I came in as speaker, was collapsing. We were going to have no insurance. People were leaving the state, going out of business. Rates were going up double digits year in, year out. Auto rates, I think, went up 30% around the time.
Mine is still going up. Mine went up 300% this year. I had no changes. I drive about 100 miles a year.
Well, let me tell you about that. You need to shop that out.
Okay.
Because the reforms we did are working. We're not there yet. I'm not satisfied.
Okay.
We're going to stop. There's a lot of home hardening we can do to help with hurricanes on the homeowner side. But homeowners, the data says that it grew by 1%. That's not double digits. That's almost nothing. Some people have seen decreases. Some have seen slight increases. I believe that's going to continue to get better and better. We haven't seen the full benefit of those reforms. And what's important, Dara, for me to note to your listeners is people said you're not going to get it done. Why? Because we did a multitude of things in that bill and then later in a larger litigation reform bill to get rid of litigation abuse, that any one of which we had tried over and over again and didn't get done. And so part of it is being, as a former military guy, knowing a good war plan and a good strategy. And I had one. And we had, again, great members like Tommy Gregory in the House and Travis Hudson in the Senate on the litigation reform effort that worked hard on that. But having a leader that's pushing that agenda, working through the differences, and there were among the two bodies and the governor's office, and making sure we didn't sink our own boat. And we got a big transformational bill done. And so we see auto rates going down between 6 and 10%. So if you don't have your auto rates going down, anybody listening, you definitely need to shop.
Okay.
Why? Because
I'm making phone calls tomorrow. So, okay, affordability is one.
Infrastructure is number two.
Infrastructure.
With millions of people coming in, that means more pressure on our roads.
The
more
traffic. Oh, my gosh.
And it means also taking care of our water supply, our water quality. Can we catch the fish and eat the fish we catch? These are important things for Florida. We have a pristine environment, a quality of life here, which is second to none. I intend to keep it that way. I'm a pro-environment or pro-conservation, I guess is maybe the Teddy Roosevelt Republican way to say it. And I'm going to make sure that we're taking care of the Everglades. We're taking care of the wildlife corridor with Presenter Pasadoma and I were very instrumental in pushing, along with others, many others. And we're going to make sure our environment's taken care of while continuing to, allow the state to kind of naturally grow. But the pressure on all those things is significant. We've got to take care of infrastructure. Finally, education. We've got a lot of good things, as you know, 9 years in a row, top higher ed. We can do better. I believe we can do better. We've got to address AI. And as it starts to disrupt jobs, I don't want a kid going into graphic design in year one, and 4 years later, AI is doing it for free in 30 seconds. That's not a very good, responsible way for us as leaders to manage that experience and make sure we're making modifications. So maybe they have some AI training so that they can get out and actually work in that space, but maybe in a little different way than they intended before the economy shifted.
It is amazing what the kids are doing with AI now. I mean, I think we are, as a culture, me personally too, as an older person, are way behind on what the kids, how they're using it in their education. I don't think the schools have caught up to where the kids are.
They have not.
Yeah.
I'm on the board of governors. We need to work.
That's
on
right.
That. We need
You
to work
are.
on that. And
Yeah.
I think it's somebody said at the last meeting, it was a faculty member, like, we can't have 5-year plans anymore. Those don't exist.
That's
because
right.
so much is going to change
Changing
in
so
1 year.
quickly.
Yeah. And then I mentioned infrastructure and education, K-12, room for improvement. I'm not satisfied when we have 40% of our students who don't read on grade level or don't do math on grade level in the third grade. Morally unacceptable. We've got to get after that, like a Manhattan Project effort to get rid of that problem and make sure that every kid's on grade level, because they plateau at that point in terms of their ability to learn going forward.
As the CEO of, you make a good point that the governor is the CEO of the state and runs all these state agencies. Is there anything that you would do differently, or is there any area that you think needs to be addressed?
Well, I mean, I began with HB1 in my second year to protect children online. I think social media, and specifically those platforms that use addictive technology that are keeping kids on 8 hours a day, is destroying, literally destroying. Some of them are taking their own lives and having major depression issues. Many of the members, in the House
We're still fighting that in the courts. I just was reading some of that litigation today.
Yeah. And the governor vetoed that first bill. So we have had sharp disagreements on that. And we came to a landing spot because it wasn't going to go away with nothing. But I think 16 is a good age. And, there's a reason why we don't let kids drive. And that's not because they don't have good reflexes. They're better than ours at our age. And so, but they don't have the judgment to know, can I beat that car if I pull out in front of them? And they don't have the judgment to know that after hours and hours online, that it's wrecking their psyche. And also it's the key place for sexual predators. So your kid is more safe in a county park alone at night at midnight than in their own room. Your 12-year-old daughter thinks she's talking to a 12-year-old girl on the other end who's really a 52-year-old man. This is reality in America today, and we've got to protect our kids. And I'll do that as governor.
What would you do differently? That's being fought in court now. You passed that law. Is there anything that you could do on day one through an executive order or through an agency?
I would ask that question. I'm a big believer in the separation of powers. I'm not going to do something as governor that belongs to the legislature or the courts. But yeah, if I can, through executive order, I would do it, and we'll issue executive orders where appropriate. But it's really something that goes to the bill we started with was a bright line at 16. So I would want to see us go back to that. But there's more than just social media platforms. There's a rampant human trafficking. We probably have more human trafficking, more slavery, if you will, in our world today than we did in the 19th century, when we know very well we had slavery in America. We have more slaves, whether it's labor or sex or something else, and many of those are children. So I will get after that issue in a big way. People will regret ever living in Florida or victimizing anyone in Florida if they do that.
And we'll be right back with Paul Renner. Divas, you know what time it is. It is that time. What time is it? The news in haikus. It's the news in haikus. Don Quixote or Sunshine Cinderella Man. Renner sees a win. The news in haikus. It's the news in haikus. Don't forget, we'd love to hear your haiku. You can slide them into my DMs, or you can send them to podcasts, that's podcasts with an S, at e.newsserviceflorida.com. Wherever you're listening, please don't forget to subscribe and give us a rating if you like what we're doing. And we're back with Paul Renner. You mentioned the Board of Governors. we've had a lot of changes going on in higher education. What are your thoughts on some of the folks who've come over from, who are more political, who are now taking over as heads of colleges and universities? Do you think that's a good thing? There's been a lot of, a lot of hand wringing over that.
It depends. It depends on who you are. I mean, I can name names. Jeanette Nunez, great person. Tommy Gregory, great person. Fred Hawkins. I'm just going with Mel Ponder. The ones that the governors have appointed a lot of great people that have come out of public office. Now, not everybody in public office should be a college president or university president, but the skill set of raising money, working with people, talking to people with whom you may have disagreements, working through compromising to find solutions is fundamental to what you learn in an elected office. And if you're good at it, I think you'd make a good college president or university president. But contrary to any rumors out there, I'm not going to be one.
Okay.
I'm running for governor, nothing but governor.
Okay.
I'm not running for LG.
Putting that.
Jump into
I
some
was
other
just going to ask you about the LG. You're answering all my questions before. So
That's
no
not happening.
LG, no LG.
Yeah, and people run plays like that are designed to kind of kneecap you a little bit, because why would somebody want to give to somebody who's running for something else or planning to do something else?
Right.
I spent a lot of time with my family praying about this. I'm running for one thing only, and that's governor of the state of Florida.
And Peter Schorsch was on my show recently, and he said something. He mentioned about your faith being a factor in your decision to run for governor. Can you expand on that? Tell me what he meant. I mean, not what he meant by that, but what is your motivation to run?
Well, thanks for the question. Our life is a vapor, whether we like it or not. The one thing that's certain for all of us, at some point we die. We just tragically, and of course you know about Charlie Kirk, but we tragically lost an assistant county administrator and his wife in a car accident just a couple days ago.
Oh.
Great guy, and I didn't know his wife, but I really have had a life of service. I'm a preacher's kid. My mom's a school teacher. This is just kind of burned into my DNA. It's not financially advantageous. It's not advantageous for my family in terms of time, but we believe in service. And so I did pray a lot about it. I don't pray whether I'm going to win. To me, that's bargaining with God. We don't do that. But we step out in obedience, and that's what I believe I'm doing. I do believe I will win, but not because he told me so, but he told me to step out. And I do believe in prayer, and that God answers prayer. And I feel I heard clearly enough, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't be here, because I really wasn't planning to do this until just a few short months ago. But I've seen, and whether we agree or disagree, but I don't like the fact that people are coming out of state trying to jam stuff in our Constitution. I was involved in the school board races. These are things that are not on my job description as speaker, and it wasn't on the governor's either. That's the kind of governor I'll be. I'll be a governor that says, look, this is not coming to my desk as governor, but I'm going to go out here and stop. And you may not care about weed or abortion, but you may care about the next thing that comes down the pipe.
Right.
Citizen initiatives ought to be for citizens.
I think we're kind of in that era now, Speaker, where like people in executive power, with executive power, or in the executive branch, I think there's no such thing as staying in your lane anymore. It used to be like you only do these certain things. And I feel like with the AG, and even with the new education commissioner, Stasi, and certainly with the governor, I think those that we're seeing a more expansive kind of authority. And I asked the AG about that, and he really said that they believe in an energetic executive.
That's right out of the Federalist Papers.
Right.
Energy in the executive, and I will be just like that as governor. What I'm saying is
also there was a caution about not having any kings, so there's kind of got to be a balance, right?
No, and I'm a big respecter of the separation of powers coming out of the legislature, and as you heard today from the Speaker D, all appropriations, all policy bills come out of the legislature. There's no legacy for a governor short of the legislature passing those things through. Now, the governor can do other things outside the legislature for sure. But one of the things I love about the governor is he has leaned in on Amendment 3 and 4, as I did also with him. Same with school board races. But I don't see that in other states, is what I should have said.
Okay.
And I think a lot of Floridians, certainly in the Republican Party, are worried that we're going to get, kind of half a loaf maybe. And I don't mean that to anybody, but people don't want to go backwards. They want to have the same kind of energetic leadership. I will absolutely provide that. That's the kind of governor I'll be. Now, I'll say this, because you asked about differences.
Sure.
And this is not directed to the governor, but I see a lot of politics gravitating towards social media and political theater.
Oh
and
my
entertainment.
gosh.
And if you want a social media entertainer, I am not your guy. If you want your problem solved, I am absolutely your guy. And if you want a leader, a true leader, and a statesman who will be careful about the words he uses in times where, and this again, not directed at anybody, but you just see, after the Charlie Kirk assassination, that's a very, very tough time, or assassination of a president, or anything like that, where the George Floyd, all that stuff where people are on edge. It's incumbent on a leader to lower the temperature.
Right.
Bobby Kennedy, RFK Jr.'s dad, after Martin Luther King's assassination, did a marvelous job of saying, let's calm down.
Do you think we need more of that right now?
Well, I think social media is driving people to extreme tribalism. And I don't mean that philosophically. I'm about as conservative a guest as you're ever going to have.
Right, I know.
Along with the governor. I think you know that.
We can replay the first recording, and
right.
we got.
You're not. I'm not. There's no squishiness in my conservatism, but that's different. That's different. I'm not angry. I'm a happy conservative, and I think I see, and this is where the faith piece comes in again. I believe we should have hope in this life and eternity hereafter, and I see life as a beautiful thing. And I want to make sure people experience the same great America, the same great Florida that I did, and can have that. And that means making sure everybody moves forward together. And so I won't ever compromise on principle, but at the same time, I'm not going to be looking to demonize my opponents. And I think there's a place where our civility needs to be improved. And social media is really making that harder.
It's so bad. It's so bad. Do you think we are nearing a point where the tribalism is having an impact on people, and the unfettered expression on social media is encroaching on First Amendment rights? Because you're seeing, people are getting canceled, people are getting fined, people are getting fired. As a journalist, as an First Amendment advocate, that raises concerns for me. Look, nobody should get shot at, or certainly not killed. I'm not advocating any of that. Please understand what I'm saying. But do you think we're getting near that point?
Well, I'm concerned that social media is potentially taking us there. And as a veteran, let me say this clearly, big believer in the First Amendment. If I am a Christian and a believer and you are an atheist, I fought for you too. If I'm a conservative, you're a liberal, I fought for you too. That's very, very important. And we cannot lose that, because you can't have situational morality or moral relativism. And I don't want to see it on my side of the aisle any more than I want to see it on the other side of the aisle. We have to respect speech that offends us in order to have everyone's speech protected. That's fundamental to America. And so I will certainly be speaking up for free speech on college campuses. I'm very happy that we did not put the former nominee to the University of Florida up, because I don't think he was really doing that. And the guy we have now, Donald Landry, who's an interim, but Columbia, brilliant guy, but he's also a big advocate for free speech. Not my speech or your speech or somebody else's, somebody's speech, but all speech. Teach Marx, teach Adam Smith. And then also ask the question of how has that philosophy, those two competing philosophies, operated when put into real life practice. And in my opinion, Marx has led to poverty, prison, and death. Adam Smith to human thriving. With all capitalism's faults, there are faults, it's led many more people out of poverty.
That's right. I'm not endorsing what you said, but
you get it.
I totally get it. Yes,
You're
I
nodding.
do.
You're nodding.
I am nodding. If you can't see me, I am nodding. I know we're running a little bit short on time.
I'm probably late.
I have a few fun questions for you.
Fire away.
Few fun questions. We need to get you back on here, because I have about 20 questions we didn't get to ask.
We can do it.
Okay.
I'm all over the media.
All right.
Every question is on limits, not off limits.
Yay. All right. So here we go. These are the really tough ones, Speaker. Crocs, yay or nay?
No, but Ofus, yay.
Oh.
They changed my flat feet in pain of I was walking around the house barefooted on the hardwood floors, which feels good, right? Until your feet start hurting. And Ofus. That's my
Ofus, there we go.
Free commercial on
We got to get them to be a sponsor. Pumpkin spice, yay or nay?
No.
Okay.
Pumpkin pie, yes.
Okay.
Pumpkin seeds, yes.
Favorite Halloween candy to get and to give?
Ooh, I'm going to think of this when I walk out. I don't really like the candy corns. Man, Halloween candy. Well, it's got to be a Baby Ruth.
Okay, great. And my last one, favorite phone app.
Ooh. Favorite phone app. Why am I getting stumped on this? What am I on? Well, probably my sleep ring.
You're on the Aura.
Zealous about sleep. I didn't get much last night.
Is it an Aura?
It is an Aura.
Joe Gruters.
Another free commercial on the show.
Joe Gruters and Blaze both have Auras,
yeah, except Blaze wears it on the index
I
finger,
know.
and I'm going to give him a hard time about that. That's where you're supposed to wear it, but I can't.
Renner,
it's my wedding ring.
Former Speaker of the Florida House of Representatives, Republican candidate for governor. It's been a real treat having you here with us today.
Likewise, Dara. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening to Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida, hosted by News Service senior writer Dara Cam and produced by me, Mike Exline. Music for the podcast was recorded by Periodic Labs, LLC.